Welcome to the Contact Center Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. Today we have on a very special guest. We have on Jackob Alaluf. Now, Jackob, you are the VP Customer Experience at Bridgewise, which is a really interesting AI-powered fintech startup, which I'd love to hear a little bit more. But we're going to be talking today about CX as the number one differentiator in business. And that came out of a McKinsey study where they looked at over 400 highly profitable B2C and B2B companies. And they came out with that CX was the number one differentiator in the marketplace. Not product, not price, not our technology, but CX. So we're going to talk about the differences. You played so well in both worlds, B2C and B2B, that we're going to talk about that a lot more today. And you've been in the business for a long time. We both have the gray hairs to talk about our tenure in the industry, right? But I'd love to turn it over to you just for a minute here and maybe explain a little bit more about your background before we get started.
Thank you, Steve. Happy to be here. My name is Jackob. I'm in the CX business for the last 35 years. Started back with some technical background. I came with an engineering background, so started there. But very quickly started to understand that my passion is really working with people, working with customers, making sure that customers are satisfied and happy with what we develop and what we provide. So I found myself very quickly starting to switch over to the customer experience side. Did many years actually in the telco industry, mostly in a tech company, of course, in different roles from project management to account management, all the way to sales and customer success. 35 years, mostly global companies. Out of them, 16 years I lived in the States. So had the experience of also working for a US-based companies. Back now in Israel, most of the years, as you mentioned, I did the B2B companies. At some point, I decided that I need to have some exposure and also understand the world of the B2C. This is when I stepped aside and joined the gaming company, where I actually managed also customer success in one of the games for that company. A few months back, I decided to go back to the B2B world and join the Bridgewise, the amazing company, startup company in the fintech industry. We do have very sophisticated and innovative solution based on AI that help investors actually make the right and the smart decision. I'm there now and in the process of building a customer experience organization and started a new and a really interesting journey now.
Well, I'd love to get your point of view on this to begin with. That statement that McKinsey said, that CX is the number one differentiator today. In your mind, what elevates CX, the customer experience, to that kind of level? Because over time, we've thought about product and price as the competitive differentiators in the marketplace. But in your mind, why is CX the number one differentiator today?
Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm a big believer that behind every business, whether it's gaming or it's a fintech or it's a telco or anything else, you are interacting with people. People get exposed to the product, to the solution that you offer. The most important part, in my view, is that whoever is adapting the solution is looking at the vendor, the provider, to be the one who's actually making them satisfied with what they are receiving, making sure that the product is being adopted by the company. At the end of the day, the customer experience representatives are the ones who actually responsible to take the product or to take the solution and making sure that whoever is taking this product or solution is satisfied with what they received, what they purchased, what they are using. If you look at the market now, again, no matter what is the industry that we are talking about, competition is huge. I mean, you will find with any product, with any solution, you will find the competition and you will find the similar solution, similar product. The difference will be with the people behind these products and the solutions. In my view, again, it is a key differentiator. I mean, you need to be the one who actually complement the product or complement the solution with the right people, with the right service, with the right experience, ensuring the right level of satisfaction. It's not a surprise that this research came with this findings.
You know, it's interesting because you talk very eloquently about the role and the importance of CX to the organization, yet most of us in the industry, in like customer support, customer experience, contact centers, we feel more like a support department than we do somebody that has more conversations with the customer than anyone, that has more to say to help any department in the company, whether it's product or sales or marketing or operations. Why do you think we struggle to have that level of respect or that seat at the table?
It's a very good question. First of all, it varies between companies. I can tell you that I'm lucky to be now in a place where when I joined when the company started realizing and adjusting to the idea that that's becoming a critical part in the process. And I'll explain. When you have a really amazing solution. You have an amazing product which gets a huge attention from the market, and everybody wants it, and everybody want to get a taste of it. And I'm lucky to be in a place like that. This is where you're coming to the point that you're starting to understand. I'm going to sell, a day after day. I mean, the demand is going to be amazing and everything else. But what's next? I mean, okay, I'm gonna offer that. Companies are going to purchase my product. Now I need to make sure that they are adopting the project. They are adopting the product. They are starting to use it. They are satisfied with it, because otherwise, I mean, the churn is going to come very soon, and then there is no value in, in the fact that you have an amazing product. At that point, when a company realizes that it's not only about the product, but it's also about utilizing and adopting the product, this is where you start to understand that the part of the customer experience is becoming critical. Now, why it is so hard to get a seat in the C-level table? Many companies are very sales-centric, revenue-focused. We can understand that. But when you start to realize that it's not only about making the revenue, but keeping the revenue and keeping the
Yes.
growth and expanding, this is where you understand that the customer experience becoming a key part in the chain. And this is where you start to realize the importance of that function in the company.
Those are some of the things that the C-suite really thinks through, right? They're going to think about growth and revenue metrics. They're going to think about things like customer churn and how costly that is for an organization. Things like NRR, net recurring revenue, things like that, that I'm sure you're right in the middle of, super important. And if we can start to focus what we do to how it aligns with the C-suite and the board and how they're looking at growth in the company, then they're going to look at us as business advisors as well as customer advisors. And it was interesting because you mentioned that companies can be very sales oriented, which makes perfect sense. I was just talking earlier today with a chief sales officer, and he said that most companies have an alignment problem, but none of them should, because if you're focused on the voice of the customer, it aligns everyone. I just want to get your opinion on that, because it seems like we have an opportunity to take that voice of the customer and represent it to the entire company.
Absolutely.
And if we do that, like, that's an amazing opportunity to align everyone behind their needs. Over your career, you've had a lot of at-bats at this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you one of the things that I keep telling every customer success manager in my departments in the current company and previous companies. One of the things that I keep saying, I mean, the customer success manager is kind of a double agent. From one side, he's the one actually represent the company at the customer side, and he's the representative of the customer at the company side. He's the one who actually needs to voice the customer needs, challenges, complaints, whatever, and making sure that the company listen, understand, realize, and take the required measurement in order to make sure the required changes, the required adjustment, and everything else. From the other side, he needs to be the one, he needs to be the company's agent in front of the customer and making sure that he represent the customer in the right way, ensure and encourage the growth and adoption and all these things. The voice of the customer is definitely a critical part, because again, a company which is not going to be a customer centric and will continue to develop whatever they believe they need to develop or deliver the time that they need to that they think they need to deliver without listening to the other side, will find themselves continue to develop for themselves rather than for the market. That's a key. So absolutely, I mean, voice of the customer is definitely one of the key KPIs, I would say key requirements for any customer success manager to put in his list.
It's interesting. We've talked now how all of this really applies across B2C and B2B industries, but you've played on both sides of the fence. What are the biggest differences between being in customer experience on the B2C side versus the B2B side?
That's a huge difference, I would say. That's a really, really big difference. On the B2B side, some of the rules of the game, I would say, are very clear. You have a contract, you have SLAs, you have a very simple and easy way to understand what are the requirements, what are the expectations, what is the timeline for the delivery, phases of delivery, and all this stuff. They are very clear. On the other side, the customer side, usually it will be people who actually understand the technology or understand the industry. The dialogue is very professional. And there are very clear rules again to this part. When it comes to the B2C, it's a completely different thing. I mean, there is actually no contract, there is no rules to the interaction with the customers. Specifically, in my case, when I was with the gaming company, you deal with a very, very different kind of audience. Some of the challenges is you understand, for example, the technology behind the product, and you understand where the challenges are and what leads to those challenges. When the end user, in most of the cases in the B2C, doesn't necessarily in the details of what is the technology behind it and why he's experiencing, a specific situation in the product and things like that. It's different, again, different experience, different way of handling things. Other than that, volumes are very different. Again, when you are in the B2B industry, you are dealing with companies. So the number of companies you deal with is definitely smaller than when you are in the B2C side. In the gaming industry, for example, you deal with hundreds of thousands of users on a daily basis. When I moved from a gaming company, which is B2C, to the B2B, I kept saying, I mean, it's a different game. It's
a different game.
One of the things that I was happy about is to get the taste of both of them, because right now where I am, for example, in Bridgewise, the solution is in most of the cases is B2B2C, because at the end of the day, it's a solution that we are selling it to businesses, but they're offering it to their end customers. The understanding of the whole chain of B2B and then from the B2C is very helpful to get the wider view of how things are working and what the C at the end of the chain is expecting and the experience of the end customer. It gives a much broader and a much clearer picture of how you need to drive your customer experience actions in order to make not only the B2B part, but also to make it all the way to the last mile of the end customer.
Well, I know that you have to have been playing on both sides. You have to learn things that you're like, oh, in the B2C world, I could see how that applies to B2B. And in the B2B world, I could see how that better applies over to B2C. What's an example of a couple of ideas that because you played on both sides of the fence that you think you could share with the other side or cross-pollinate?
Yeah. I mean, I can tell it's an interesting question. I remember in the first week in the current company, one of the things that we talked about is how do we measure adoption of a product by the end customer? For example, in the gaming industry, measuring adoption or measuring actually the active users of the game on a daily basis is critical, because that's the main measurement. How many people are logging into the game on a daily basis?
Yeah.
To take the mechanism of how do you measure adoption, or how do you measure actually usability of a product in the B2B side when it is a product that actually goes all the way to the end customer? It was a very nice experience to see how to take the mechanism that I learned in the B2C and apply it into the B2B, because there are users that their regular habit, for example, is to log into the game every day. And there are users that the regular habit is to log into the game once a week. A user who actually used to log into the game once a week, and if he didn't log in for 2 days, it doesn't mean that he just, stopped playing or he left the game, because that's his usual frequency of logging in. So you need to develop a mechanism that measure adoption based on the regular habits of the user. One of the things that we wanted to see is to check how do you measure the adoption of this application, the investment application by the end users. And the idea is to check, first of all, what's the regular habit, and based on that, to make the measurement and see whether you have some challenges of usability or not. There are definitely some metrics and some ways of doing things in the B2C which are applicable, and you can take them and use them in the B2B2C areas.
So I'm sure when you came into the new position that you're at, one of the questions was, Kobe, what's your point of view on AI and what it's going to do for our organization, servicing our customers, helping grow our revenue base? What's your point of view on, because everybody has a point of view on AI, right? What's your point of view on AI and what it can be doing for us today?
Yeah, great question. You will hear about AI everywhere, every time, with every product, to the point that in a lot of cases, you just put the AI sticker on everything, whether it's relevant or not. But I think, I mean, one of the things that I really loved when I started the whole dialogue with the current company is that it's the first time, or it's one of the first times that I see, the exact place where AI suit and where it makes really sense. Because at the end of the day, we are talking about human being need to make a decision. You want a decision to be based on an educated decision based on massive amount of data. AI is the right place to do that. Think about an investor that need to make a decision to buy or sell a stock or fund or whatever, and he wants to make an educated decision, and he wants to base it on huge amount of data, which is available in different sources, in different places, and you want to take all this data and somehow digest it and make this decision. And obviously, a human being with the limitation cannot make this decision, without the right tools that allows him to take this massive amount of data from all these sources and make the decision. So AI is the perfect place where it can help a human being to make such a decision. You hear about AI everywhere, every time. There are some specific places where you say, okay, that's the right utilization of this amazing thing called AI. And that's what I saw in the current company. That was really what attracted me. And then I said, okay, that's a good place to be.
Yeah, AI is at its best almost when it has vast pools of data that it can analyze and bring together and serve up and help give options for recommendations and things to go on. And I clearly see how, like in Bridgewater, it's helping make financial decisions. It's also doing that on the customer service side as well. And there's talk about all the different conversations. Like you had said, you might have, what, 100,000 conversations in the gaming company a day? No one person could ever, or team of people could ever even analyze that kind of information without AI capabilities. How is it helping you think today to serve the customer better? What is AI doing that helps us elevate our CX game?
I mean, there are many areas that we are starting actually utilizing AI also on the customer experience world. One of them will definitely be on the support side. The ability to actually take the information that comes from the customer, whether they're tickets, customer support tickets, or questions, or anything like that, and be able to analyze using AI, analyze the content of those tickets or questions and be able to produce responses to them, that actually allows you to handle a much bigger volume, which is something that was very much applicable again when you go to the B2C world. This is where you are starting to get massive amount of tickets or requests that coming from the end customers, and it's almost impossible to respond to them manually one by one and without breaching your SLA. So the ability to use a AI-based solution that knows how to take those requests and be able to respond to them in an intelligent way is huge capability. This is one area that definitely you can see the AI stepping into the customer experience world. Other than that, many tools which are out there that helps you with timelines and planning your projects and optimize them to the best way is all there. Back then, I still remember we used to build those Gantt charts, with the
Oh,
with
yeah.
the
Yeah.
manual projects, and now it's much easier to develop those timelines, optimize them, and make sure that you are able to track them in the right way. It's a huge change from where we started. And this is where you can see AI is becoming a major improvement to the AI customer experience process.
We've talked about so much here in kind of the premise of the learning experience from being on both sides from B2C and B2B. And our poor human brains can only remember about two to three things at a time. If there was one thing that you wanted other customer experience, customer support, contact center executives to take away from our conversation today, what would that one thing be?
If there is one thing that I would say that should be taken from here is retention. I'll keep talking to the people again. What are the main KPIs that we need to track? Satisfaction, growth, expansion, all this stuff. In my view, retention is the one thing that we need to keep and make sure that it's high on our list. Because getting a customer is one thing, but keeping them, that's the key. First of all, for the expansion, eliminating churn, which is huge, especially in the market now. You are losing one customer. It's something that you never know what will be the outcome of losing a customer. You'll find the consequences of that in a later stage, and that's something that you must prevent. So retention, I would say, is the one thing that in my view now is a top priority.
Well, here I do know one thing too, is that people are going to have questions. And would it be appropriate if we gave out a link to your LinkedIn profile that people could reach out to you and ask questions?
Sure, absolutely. We'll be happy to.
The whole mission of this podcast is to bring people from very different experiences and backgrounds under CX umbrella and share insights and ideas and our experiences. If we do that, it's the rising tide that lifts all boats. I just wanted to say that I think you were a really important part of that rising tide today. So thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm happy to be here.